Welcome to my channel. Today I will be reading from a subreddit, so let's jump into it. I was just 4 or 5 years old, and my parents had just separated. My mom was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had my own room, but I preferred to sleep in her bed whenever I was staying with her. Our 2 bedrooms were at the end of the hallway, directly across from each other. Our apartment was on the first floor, and I remember that it was in the middle of the summer, and my mom had a window open in her room, which was directly behind the bed above the headboard. Anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night and remember sitting up and seeing that our cat was sitting in the doorframe of my mom's room. I should note her door was open. Then you could partially see into my bedroom. This was strange, because our cat was typically always in bed with us. As I was watching him, he walked into my bedroom and meowed. I turned to face my mom and woke her up. In the 3 or 4 seconds it took me to wake her up and ask her what was wrong. We both looked back up at the doorframe, and there was a man standing by my open door, making his way out of the bedroom. I still don't know how she managed to do it so quickly, but my mother proceeded to pick me up and literally throw me out of the screen window. She quickly followed, and we were able to start screaming for help, and someone called 911. The police came but didn't see any signs of forced entry, only that our front door was unlocked, which led them to believe that the man must have exited that way. The strange thing was that my mom swore up and down that she had locked the door that night with a deadbolt and chain lock. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen and opened up our water heater closet and found a notebook with names and drawings, as well as a pair of gloves and some gum wrappers. The police were called again, but all they could do was speculate that the man had been in our house and hid until we were asleep. So this happened in the early to mid-2000s. I was very much not an adult. But anyways, about 8 years ago, my sister and I were clearing out my parents' shared storage locker, and I came across the same notebook, almost exactly as Opt described. It was filled with random names and drawings. I showed it to my sister, who confirmed that none of the names were my handwriting. And when we opened it, there was a glove inside. I pulled it out, and it was one of those neon pink or purple ones that you get from a pharmacy. I immediately got goosebumps. When we were kids, my mom told us that story many times, but for whatever reason, we never really talked about it as adults. But after finding that notebook, I started asking more questions. And my mom confirmed that the glove in the notebook was the same one that was in the glove compartment. She also said that my dad had asked her if he could look through it once, but she took it right back. When I asked why, she gave this weird excuse about how she didn't want him to see something that was mine. I knew what I had found was somehow connected to the story, but I didn't realize how until yesterday. When I got home, I went to check my mailbox. And to my horror, there were 3 letters addressed to me from 3 different people with the exact same handwriting as the one in the book. Now, I can't say for sure that these are connected to the incident, but the timing. The fact that my name is spelled incorrectly in all of them, the handwriting, the fact that it was sent from somewhere else in Canada, despite my parents moving from Ontario to Alberta before I was even born. And finally, the fact that my mom said that she destroyed all of the letters that were sent to her from that man, which would make sense if they were threatening. But these aren't threatening at all. They're actually love letters. I am disgusted. As far as I know, my parents aren't in contact with each other anymore. So why would this man have tried to find me? Was he stalking us? Was he obsessed with my mom? What did he want from me? It's honestly terrifying. And I wish that I didn't read those letters now. My whole family is safe, but this has left me with so many questions and very uncomfortable thoughts. Thank you for listening to my story. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time. I moved to my dad's when I was 10, and I didn't know anyone in the area except for the family my dad was friends with. They were a single mom with 3 kids. The oldest, a girl, was a couple years older than me. She was 12 at the time I met her, and we got to know each other a little over a couple years. We weren't close, but we ended up having the same friends. One night, my friend Rob was hanging out with her and her younger brother. They happened to be in the house alone because my friend's mom was at work. Her mother's been helping this one lady through her work and got to know her fairly well. She found out her sister was in a mental institution and was let out recently. The night Rob is hanging out with my friend, they get a knock on the door. My friend thought it was just their mom, since she knocks a certain way when coming in, and he answered it without thinking. Whoever was on the other side of the door didn't say anything. My friend opened it a crack and looked through it. Seeing no one, he shut the door and went back to what he was doing. Little did he know, it wasn't their mom. It was the sister of the lady her mom was helping. She figured out from talking to her sister where her family lived and her mom's working schedule. She came in. This is where I don't know the details, and I'm glad I don't. My friend's younger brother got away to the neighbor's house to call the police. Meanwhile, my friend and his other friend were inside the house and didn't know any of that. They were playing video games. They heard sirens going by and thought nothing of it. They assumed the cops were just responding to a call or something. They finished their game, and my friend left to go home. He was gone for maybe an hour and a half. He knocked on his front door, and his mom answered. He asked if they got a phone call or something. She didn't answer right away, and he could see the worry on her face. When she finally responded, she said no, but they were waiting for someone else to come and talk to him. That's when she told him to come to the kitchen and look through the window. On the other side of that window was a cop car. The next thing he knew, the back door burst open and cops rushed in, tackling him to the ground, cuffing him, and putting him in the cop car. He was confused and scared. As he looked back at his mom through the window, he saw her crying. He asked the cop what he did, and they didn't answer. All he kept thinking was, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." He'd never been in trouble before. He'd never been arrested before. He'd never even been suspended from school. In fact, he was on a roll all throughout elementary and middle school. So he really didn't know what he did. The cop eventually told him that they were taking him down to the station to question him about a murder. At first, my friend thought it was a joke. A murder? What the hell? But then he started to panic. Then the cop told him the name of the victim. My friend's face drained of color. He knew who it was, but he didn't know how he was involved. They questioned him for hours, and he told them everything. Eventually, he admitted to being at the house, but he didn't know anything else. The cops basically read him the entire story. Apparently, the sister of the lady that his mom was helping had found out where they lived and came to the house looking for whoever was responsible for her sister's death. She was planning on killing them. His mother had called the woman in question and told her that he wasn't home. She was gone for about an hour and a half, which was extremely unusual because she was never gone that long. She always called back or something. So when the lady got home and saw the door open, she knew something was up. She had a spare key, so she let herself in and found my friend and the other kid playing video games. She asked them if they'd seen someone matching the description of the killer, and they said no. She asked them if they had a phone, told them to call the police, and locked them in the room they were in until help arrived. Yeah, that was r/. Just know, male, may, murder. If you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the same episodes. Also hit that subscribe button because I put out new videos every single day. My wife's grandmother passed away last year. She was an amazing woman who lived a very full life and passed away peacefully in her sleep at age 94. But there is a story about her that always makes me laugh. It happened about 15 years ago when my wife and I were still dating. Her grandmother's husband had passed away about a year previously, but she was trying to stay active. She had just retired from being a high school librarian and was missing the daily socialization. So she started volunteering at the local library, helping out in the children S section a couple days a week. This was in the winter, so her walk back home from the library was during dusk, which meant it was getting dark. The library closed at 5 o'clock, and there was some extra stuff to do before everyone actually left. So she would stay and help out until 6 o'clock or so. Then she would walk the mile or so back home. On this particular night, one of the other volunteers offered her a ride home since it was getting dark, but she declined. She needed to stay in shape, she said. Little did she know that declining that ride would nearly cost her her life. The house is about a mile away through some lightly wooded area in South Texas, and about halfway there, she noticed a guy behind her walking the same direction and gaining on her. Now, this in itself wasn't all that strange. She was old and thus not particularly fast, but in this case, the guy seemed vaguely sinister. She kept walking, but the guy didn't pass her. He fell into pace, just staying behind her. Now she knew something was up, but she was almost home. She could see the top of her driveway coming up, and she left her lights on so it would look like someone was home and she was walking in. She just needed to make it another 150 yards. All that time, she said she could feel his breath on her neck. Around 50 yards, it happened. A strong hand clamped down on her shoulder. "Okay, lady, don't turn around, but hand over your purse or I'll cut you." She stopped for a second, then took one big step forward, turned and shot the guy in the neck with a .38 she kept in her purse. Turns out the guy had just been released from prison a few weeks prior and was on parole. He spent the next 5 years in a prison hospital before he died of complications. My wife's grandmother passed last year, but up to the end she lamented that she pulled the trigger too soon. She could have crippled him instead, she said, and then made him walk the rest of the way home. Welcome to my channel. If you like my stories, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also hit that subscribe button because I put out new videos every single day. Thanks for watching. Hey Reddit, it's me. Your stories about encountering a creepy stalker while out in public? I got one. When I was young, I'd say 8 to 11-ish, my sister, who is 7 years older, would babysit when my parents were out. At the time, she smoked a lot, and my parents made her smoke outside, of course, so I'd follow her outside, play around, annoy her, and such. One day, my sister notices a car at the end of the driveway, just sitting in the road. It's a white SUV with a bike rack on top. It has the most tinted windows I've ever seen. You could not see inside from the side. It sat there until she went inside, then would drive to the end of the road, and sit at the church parking lot and wait until she'd come out again for another smoke, and it would repeat this. Odd, but my sister is a brave lady, and just kind of ignored it. That is, until the next day, while my parents were out again, and it showed up again. It would sit at the end of the driveway and just watch. I don't know what the driver was doing, but he was watching my sister. I know because if I didn't go out, I'd watch from the front window, and it would just sit there and watch my sister. She told my father, who was a sheriff's deputy at the time, and he called the cops and made a complaint. They showed up, looked around, but the SUV was nowhere to be seen. Months went by, nothing. Then one day, a good 9 months after this had all started, and around 4 months since the last sighting, it was back. It became a regular occurrence. One day, my sister was outside doing her nasty habit, and sure enough, here it comes. This time, we were all alone, as usual, and she decides she's had enough. She tells me to stay in the carport, and she's going to go confront them. She starts walking toward the SUV, and halfway down the driveway, she would later remark to us, I felt a terror like I knew if I went any further, I was dead. I was paralyzed by pure fear. She turned around and went inside. Finally, the family car was in the shop for some kind of issue, so we were all stuck home for the night. While my parents are home, my sister goes outside to smoke. I go outside with her, and eventually the SUV shows up. She tells me to run inside and tell my father, and I do. My dad promptly gets his gun and starts briskly walking down the driveway with it in hand in the direction of the SUV, but not leveled towards it. The SUV floated down the road and peeled out onto the nearby large highway. My dad, being a cop, noted the year and model and distinguishing features. The scariest thing, the license plate had been covered in duct tape. We never saw it again. Yeah, that's pretty messed up. Remind me to never get on your sister's bad side. Also, I love that. Your dad was like, well, if the car's in the shop, guess I got to walk to the end of the driveway. And then turn around and go back in, because there's no way that he was getting in that car. Yeah, my dad's a pretty chill guy, but if anyone ever messed with any of us or my mom, he would not hesitate to, go off on them. So yeah, that was pretty funny. Thank you for your story. And for those of you who are wondering, my sister has since quit smoking. Glad to hear it. I quit a long time ago now. I mean, I was like 14, 15. But, yeah, glad to hear that she stopped. Anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next Reddit story. Bye. One rule in ghost stories is don't investigate noises. Don't call out. Don't ask questions. Don't make a spectacle of yourself. But my curiosity always gets the best of me. One day, while doing my laundry, one of the lights blew out in my basement. My basement is set up so that the laundry room is split up from the other side of the basement with a wall and a door. In order to get upstairs, you have to exit the laundry room, go through the other part of the basement, and then up the stairs. So the light blew in the other part, not the laundry room. As it was the only light on that side, it was pretty dark. I finished the laundry I had to do while dreading the walk through the dark basement. When I'm in a rush, I don't bother turning on the lights. I just kind of feel my way around. I exit the laundry room, get halfway through the basement, and I hear a loud cackle. Imagine a sound people make when they imitate a witch. Take that and imagine the witch had been smoking for 50 years, making her voice deeper and hoarser. That's what I heard, clear as day, right behind me. I didn't hesitate to bolt for the stairs. I waited until my father got home, and then changed the bulb. I have yet to hear that cackle since, and I've not told a single person in the house about it. My next story comes from a Reddit user. A few years ago, I was working as an au pair in Germany. My main responsibility was taking care of a 2-year-old girl and assisting with housework. The little girl's parents worked from home as software engineers. I lived with them in their beautiful detached house, which was located in a small village. My room was in the attic, and the only way to access it was through the couple's bedroom. One evening I was ironing in silence when I heard strange footsteps above me. Since the attic was my only room, I assumed it was my upstairs neighbor. Later that evening, I heard the same footsteps near my room, and I started to panic. What if it wasn't my upstairs neighbor? What if it was someone in my attic? I ran into the couple's bedroom and started knocking on their door. "Come in," I heard the woman say without turning around. I opened the door and explained to them what I had heard. They both stopped working and listened intently. "Don't worry," the husband said. "It's probably just the wind. Come, we'll lock the door and you can sleep in here tonight." I was so grateful and a bit embarrassed. After all, they had never offered for me to sleep in their bed before. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. Suddenly, I was awoken by footsteps above us. At this point, I was so freaked out that I started screaming. The couple immediately got up and turned on the lights. We all started listening intently. Footsteps came closer and closer. Then all of a sudden the closet door opened, and a big black dog came out. Apparently, their dog liked to sleep in the closet during the day, and at night it liked to roam the attic. Their dog licked my face, and the three of us laughed in relief. It took another week for me to stop jumping at every creak in the house. Is there a room in your house where you refuse to go because of a terrifying experience? Share your story in the comments below, and I might feature it in an upcoming episode. I was driving a shortcut from 29 Palms, California, to Albuquerque, New Mexico. 29 Palms is located in the desolate high desert east of L.A. The shortcut was all two-lane road through total nothingness, except for passing through Amboy. Amboy is a nearly abandoned town, nearly as far below sea level as Death Valley. Some friends and I were doing some night fishing on the James River. We were sitting along the shoreline with a nice fire going, accompanied by the usual idle talk and a few beers, when suddenly everyone just stopped talking, like a switch was flipped off. We were all staring across the river and felt as if something or someone was staring back. It was a very uneasy feeling, to which some of the group tried to shake off with typical macho humor, when a blood-curdling sound erupted from the other shore that froze everyone in their tracks. The sound was unlike any other that I had ever heard, and it made every hair on my body vibrate and tingle. The only way I could describe it is it sounded like a wild person with no language skills being gutted alive. No words, just this high-pitched, blood-curdling scream. Nobody moved or said a word. We all just sat there, fixed in our stare, when just as suddenly, a second scream was let loose with even more force than the first. By this time, several of us were sprinting to our trucks that were parked a few yards away, retrieving various firearms. When we got back, we all sat there quietly with our eyes fixed, staring toward the opposite shore, watching the light from our fire reflecting off the rocks. We sat there waiting for another scream, or something to move on the other side of the river. Finally, a third scream came, just as suddenly, but this time it was on our side of the river, coming from the bush about a yard away. We all hightailed it out of there, leaving most of our stuff behind. When we got to our trucks, we heard the scream one more time, just beyond the tree line. We all floored it the hell away from there, and never found out what was making the sounds. It was a Friday night, and my friend was picking me up in his car from my house. I was in a hurry since we were running late for the hockey game in the city. The whole car ride there, we were having such a good time that I hadn't even noticed that I didn't have my phone. I searched the car seat, the floor, but it wasn't in the car. I was sure that I had just forgotten it. During the hockey game, I couldn't stop worrying that maybe I had dropped my phone somewhere, so I borrowed my friend's phone and ran to the bathroom. I dialed my number and hoped someone at my house would pick up. It took 3 rings before somebody picked up, but they remained silent on the other end. I yelled into the phone that I was just checking if I'd left my phone at home. They didn't answer. I assumed it was my little brother just messing with me, so I hung up. I got home late that night to see that my parents weren't home. I got inside my house and called them to see where they were. They told me that they had gone out to eat and see a concert at the park with my little brother. They said they left soon after I had for the game, and they should be home in around half an hour. So I hung up and proceeded to look for my cell phone. But then I realized, how could somebody in my family have picked up my phone if they hadn't been home? I felt a pain in my stomach as fear swept over. It was at that moment that I heard the back door to my house open and close. I immediately jolted out the front door to the neighbors and called the police. Apparently, the back door was left open, and somebody had simply walked into our house. Nothing was stolen, but the scariest thing is the thought that we could have fallen asleep with a stranger in the house. A while back, there was a family that moved in next door to my family. They had a son who was just twisted. He was obsessive over slasher movies and always wanted me to talk about what happened during my time serving in Vietnam that no normal person would want to hear. He also loved tormenting stray animals. This guy was a whack job. He was 19 at the time, and my daughter was 7, but he always wanted to talk to her. He'd strike up conversation with her when she walked home from school. He would talk over the fence at her when she was playing in the back. But what really set me off was when he called her house looking to speak to her. That was it. I went over and flipped at him and his parents, told him to stay the hell away from her, and I'd better not ever see him again. That's when things got weird. My daughter was always a little imaginative and paranoid. She would think there were monsters under her bed and whatnot, so when she told me there was something living in her closet, and she was too scared to get up and tell us at night. But it wasn't there in the daytime. We blew it off as no big deal. A few weeks went by, and one night my wife and daughter were staying at my mother's for a girls' night. So I turned the key on the HBO box and watched some movies, eventually falling asleep downstairs. At around 2 a.m., I get a call from my neighbor with the creepy son, telling me something along the lines of, "We saw that you were up, so we called. Our son is missing." I went by his room to use the bathroom, and his door was open, which is unusual, and there was no sign of him. "We need help looking for him." The phone call woke me up, though I wasn't up, so I asked why they thought I was. "Oh, he saw you walking around upstairs, and the light is on." My blood ran cold. I had been passed out on the couch, and I know no one turned any lights on. I hung up on them, ran outside to my truck to grab my shotgun, but noticed the sheriff pulling up to my neighbor's house. By this point, I booked it over and told them there was someone in my house, and now I could see the lights in my daughter's room were on, and there's a silhouette pacing back and forth. When the deputies went in, they found the neighbor boy there, waiting in my daughter's room with a nice little setup in her closet. He said he likes to watch her sleep in the moonlight,